Salve, everyone, and welcome to... This is Europe, and this is Italy, and this is Rome, and here's the Vatican City. Now let's take a Lookius Maximus, shall we? At less than half a square kilometre in size, Vatican City is the smallest country in the world. Geographically, it consists of the Vatican Hill and its immediate surroundings on the western bank of the Tiber River. In the time of the old Roman Republic, the area, called the Ager Vaticanus, was a rather miserable marshland, famous only for the poor quality of its wine. But as Rome expanded, the area was spruced up handsomely. Agrippina the Elder, granddaughter of Augustus, the first Roman emperor, built a lavish estate there, with gardens and a villa. The Emperor Nero made use of the area for executing Christians. The most prominent martyr is believed to have been the Apostle Peter, one of the 12 disciples of Jesus. And little did Nero suspect that one day this blood-drenched ground would house the biggest church in the world. Now, there were churches, which originally meant gatherings, not buildings, of Christians scattered all over the Mediterranean in the 1st century, each led or governed by elders called bishops, with the help of others called deacons. As time passed, bishops became the overseers of whole regions rather than single local congregations, and this included Rome. The bishop of Rome, like the other bishops, was commonly called father, in Greek papas, and this is where the word pope comes from. Tradition holds that the first pope, or bishop of Rome, was that very Apostle Peter, put to death by Emperor Nero. Evidence like the Epistle of Clement reveals that the bishop of Rome took an active part in the oversight of other churches from the 1st century onward. Emperor Constantine was the first Christian Roman emperor, and while he moved the capital from Rome to Constantinople, he commissioned the construction of an exquisite basilica in the Vatican region. Pope Leo I managed to reason with the conqueror Attila the Hun and talked him out of attacking Rome. He later managed to lessen the blow of the Vandal invasion in 455, who plundered the city but did not burn it to the ground. While the position of emperor did not survive the 5th century in Rome, the position of pope certainly did. Popes followed more popes, and some of the names are hilarious. Gregory I was among the very greatest of them. In fact, he is actually called the Great, a highly skilled administrator who held the aim of improving the lives of ordinary Romans. He also dispatched a successful mission to Christianize the Anglo-Saxons of Britain. Now, in those days, the papacy was controlled by the Byzantine emperor. The emperors were the ones who selected the pope, all except one. Martin here was selected without imperial approval, and the emperor's response was, Martin! I'll curse that name till the day I die! Now, from the 7th century onward, the Byzantine Empire was harassed by invading Arabs, and Byzantine territory in Italy was conquered by the Germanic Lombards. It was clear the Byzantines were not in a position to defend Italy, so Pope Stephen II journeyed north to buddy up with the Franks, a more powerful Germanic nation who had earlier defeated the Muslims and stopped their expansion into Europe. The Franks not only accepted the alliance, but conquered some land for the Pope to keep. This was the beginning of the Papal States, a chunk of Italy under the direct political rule of the popes. This Franco-Roman alliance was solidified in the year 800, when the Pope crowned Frankish King Charlemagne Emperor of the Romans. This did two things. It cleverly let Rome's mighty protector know that there was a power above him, the Pope, who crowned him. And it also angered Constantinople, where there was already a dynasty of emperors in place. But the Pope didn't care. The Byzantines were too busy getting attacked by Muslims to defend Rome, and also, they didn't have a man in charge at the moment, but instead, a woman. The papacy's prestige nonetheless diminished in ensuing years as sordid worldliness infected the office. Squabbles over alliances, assassinations, and rivals claiming the throne. Finally, Gregory VII here spearheaded a series of reforms, including combating simony, that is, buying your way into a position in the church. Though not a Bible doctrine, Gregory also promoted compulsory celibacy in the priesthood, but the church in the East disagreed with this, and additional differences were a major reason for the split in the church that occurred in 1054, Roman Catholic, Eastern Orthodox. The Orthodox were also not too keen on the Catholic claim that the Pope was the supreme earthly head of the Church. The relationship between the Catholic Church and the German Holy Roman Empire was strained by the contention in the issue of appointing bishops, etc., which may not seem important to us, but it was something that literally brought an emperor to his knees before the Pope. The papacy's power revealed itself again with Urban II. The Byzantine emperor asked him for help after the Turks invaded Anatolia, and the Pope whipped up the First Crusade, which established a European military presence in the Near East for 2 centuries. Back in Italy, church and state continued to vie for power. Pope Innocent III exercised immense sway in European affairs. He sanctioned the Order of St. Francis and launched the Fourth Crusade, which, against his wishes, sacked Constantinople and forever destroyed its hope of fending off the Turks. He also approved the crusade against the heretical Cathar sect, which spiraled into outright genocide. In a demonstration of changing times, the Pope's political claims were brusquely rebuffed by Philip IV of France, whose desire for greater power over the clergy and their finances, and well, everyone and everything, caused a deep rift with Rome. His bullying led to the papacy's transferal away from Rome to Avignon in the south of what's now France, and closer to French superintendence and influence. This lasted until 1376, but history is never tidy, and for a while you had a pope in Rome and a guy in Avignon claiming to be pope. Things got ridiculous at one time, with 3 people claiming popedom. The Council of Constance finally cleared up the matter by kicking them all out, and replacing them with Martin V, and the kicked-out popes said,
"Martin, I'll curse that name till the day."
Anyway, the popes went back to crushing opposition to Roman Catholicism, and amidst the Italian Renaissance, when some of the most beautiful art ever was being made, one of the least moral popes reigned, Alexander VI, from the infamous Borgia family. This pope fathered many children with mistresses, and was called out for his corruption by the friar Savonarola, who refused to support the pope and his allies against the invading French, and was later executed. And speaking of war, here's the warrior pope, Julius II, a hot-tempered man of action who battled to repel the French in Italy, whilst also getting Raphael to paint his walls and Michelangelo to paint his chapel ceiling. He also demolished the 1,000-year-old basilica commissioned by Constantine to clear the ground for the magnificent St. Peter's Basilica, one of the most magnificent buildings in the world. Did it cost a lot? Yes. How much? Oh, half of Western Europe? What? That's right. You see, a large part of the funding for St. Peter's was from the sale of something called indulgences, which in Catholicism is basically a removal or reduction of the punishment from a forgiven sin. Can such a thing be sold for money? The preacher Johann Tetzel certainly thought so, and as he journeyed through Germany collecting money for the Pope, he would apparently sing the accompanying jingle, "As soon as the coin and the coffer rings, the soul from purgatory springs." Anyway, all this enraged a certain man named Martin Luther, who was like, "Hey, that's not in the Bible," and before you knew it, a whole range of complaints about corruption in the church and its theology and its papacy were being aimed at Rome, and thus the Reformation was born, which saw Christendom divided for the second time, Orthodox, Catholic, Protestant. The Catholic response was Pope Paul III convoking the Council of Trent, which basically reaffirmed Catholic dogma whilst aiming to address instances of corruption in the church. And within this Counter-reformation, the Pope also approved a new order, the Jesuits, tireless missionaries and politically involved intelligentsia. Under Pope Alexander VII, the Grand Plaza of St. Peter's Square was commissioned and designed by the great genius Bernini. Pope Innocent XI proved a wise and able governor of the Papal States, and was also instrumental in forming the Holy League alliance of European states that defeated the Ottoman Turks and significantly weakened the Turkish position in Eastern Europe. When France's monarchy was overthrown via revolution, the French invaded the Papal States, and French rule continued through the age of Napoleon. The Papal States regained its independence in 1814 at the Congress of Vienna. As the 19th century progressed, fragmented Italy began to unify, but the Papal States wanted to remain separate. So, war! The city was captured and the Papal States ceased to exist. The Pope was not happy and retreated to the Vatican area and refused to leave it, regarding himself, as did his successors, as prisoners of the Kingdom of Italy. At least it was a nice-looking prison. Anyway, this same Pope defined the dogmas of the Immaculate Conception, the idea that Mary was sinless, and papal infallibility, the idea that when the Pope speaks officially from his chair, he speaks perfectly and without error. Pope Benedict XV proved a warm and capable diplomat during World War I, and in 1929 the Lateran Treaty was signed between the Church and Italian Prime Minister Mussolini, which established the Vatican City as an independent nation. In 1933, the Vatican signed a treaty with newborn Nazi Germany, the Vatican seeking to protect the rights of Catholicism in Germany, but Hitler chalked it up as a propaganda win, pristine stagecraft to legitimize his rule. During World War II, the Vatican was neutral, but the Pope made it clear that the Church did not support racism or totalitarian regimes. While his efforts at mitigating the evils perpetrated during the war have been praised by some, others have accused him of being too weak, tentative and ineffectual at a time when strength, conviction and action were most needed. In 1962, Pope John XXIII arranged the pivotal council known as Vatican II, basically a call to update and modify modernize the church. Pope John Paul I died after only 33 days of assuming the office, and there are multiple conspiracies about it, some involving the Vatican Bank. John Paul II from Poland became Pope in 1978, the first non-Italian Pope since the 1520s. His influence and campaigning contributed to the collapse of communism in Europe and promoted interfaith dialogue. He offered an apology to the Orthodox Church for the sacking of Constantinople in the Fourth Crusade, and for Catholic violence against Protestants in the religious wars following the Reformation, and even visited a Lutheran church. He supported the building of a mosque in Rome, and kissed the Quran, a book that calls Christians the worst of all creatures. Maybe he didn't know about that bit. He was shot by a Turkish gunman in 1983, but survived, and later visited the man in prison. Upon John Paul's death in 2005, millions of mourners called for his beatification, and indeed, he was pronounced a saint in 2011. Benedict XVI renounced his papacy in 2013, the first pope to do so since this guy in 1294. He was followed by Francis, the first South American pope and first Jesuit pope, and the first pope to have an account on Instagram. His papacy stressed kindness and compassion, and after he passed in 2025, he was succeeded by Leo XIV, the first pope from the USA. The Vatican City today, governed by the Holy See, has only 882 inhabitants, but the spiritual citizenship of 1.4 billion Catholics all over the world. Half the land area consists of pleasant gardens, the rest in glorious architecture, and a pagan Egyptian obelisk. But they put a cross on it, so it's okay. There's also that exclusive library that few people are permitted to enter. Hey Vatican, let me in! No! Let me in! No! Come on, let me in! No! Come on! Please! No! Well, anyway, that's it for the Vatican, and that's all from me for now. Bye-bye!